Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Counter Intel or Counterintelligence. I am your host, Albert Earl, and I have a very, very special guest with me. This is our Spread the Love campaign portion of Counterintelligence. And let me tell you a little bit about the show before I introduce our lovely guest. But this show is designed to counter a lot of the mis and disinformation that you see going on the media in the media today. We want to bring education to you that's real, that's factual, and can actually be confirmed through your own research. So, without further ado, let me say this before we get started. This show is funded by UMADOP Lucas County, who is also funded by OMAS and Mental Health Recovery Service Board of Lucas County. And this show is for educational purposes. So please make sure that you like and most of all, subscribe. Today, our very, very special guest is Anita Madison, who is with the Ohio Unity Coalition. That's helping with the campaign. Their slogan is this year, "Power of the Ballot," and I'm gonna let her tell you a lot more about what she do. Now, let me say this before she speaks. This is a nonpartisan organization.
Absolutely.
And what we're going to try to do today, no, what we're going to do today is encourage communities, the black community, more specifically, and the communities that are underserved, to encourage them to get out and vote. But most of all, also give them some education on why it's important to vote. Not just your old slogans of because the people died for the right to vote. It's a lot more to that, and we're going to talk about that. And trust me, at the end of this show, you're going to be very, very happy about the education that you get, because this is a very, very educated lady in various different other lanes, by the way. She humble, she ain't gonna say that, but I will. But Anita, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having us, because we are an organization that is statewide. The Ohio Unity Coalition is an affiliate of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation. We're the Ohio Coalition on Black Civic Participation, but we're known around the state as the Ohio Unity Coalition. We're a 501c3 nonpartisan organization.
Great. And the mission of the organization.
So our main goal is to engage Black and underserved areas of the city, across the state, really, and to increase their political literacy, as well as educate them on how the political process and how voting actually impacts them.
You just said a mouthful, and I really want to get right into it, because a lot of young people today, and I'll be very, very transparent. Even when I was young, there was a time frame, regardless of all of the education that I got with my family, received from my family. There was a time when I was like, what is the purpose of voting? So I know someone who may not have that structure that I had. It could be easily, they could easily be misled to believe that voting or that the political process don't impact them in any way. Can we talk about how the political, how all of this affects our community and why we should be engaged in the political process?
Mick, the political process affects every aspect of your life. I don't care what it is that you're engaged in. The fact that you get up in the morning and put your shoes on, there's a political decision made about the fact that you were able to buy some shoes.
Right.
So it affects the economy. It affects everything that you do, from the purchases that you make, the schools that you send your children to, what your children are going to be taught in those schools. All of that is every aspect of life is really there's someone in office that is creating policy around those issues.
So I'm gonna throw a couple of things out there. Potholes in the street.
If those are local elections, which are, by the way, I know we have a presidential election coming up, but all politics is local. Your local elections are so vital because that who decides what streets get fixed, who decides, just countless decisions that the city makes. Where does the money go that the city has? Who decides what programs are going to be funded? These summer programs we just had, there is a politician who decided how much of that money that program was going to get.
So that leads directly to my next comment. When you talk about programs, organizations such as the Frederick Douglass Community Center, the Boys and Girls Club, any organization that's working with our children and our families, their doors are open directly because of monies that are allocated to them because of politicians.
That's correct.
UMADOP Lucas County, recovery services.
County politicians.
That come down from what level? The federal level,
Yes.
Correct? Which means that, and we know that the, your local elections, a lot of us like to say that's more important, but the federal level, all of it ties in together.
All of it really does. And so we know that when there are federal dollars, 9 times out of 10, those federal dollars are sent down to the state. And so you have the governor in play and all of his politicians, all of that.
Right.
It's important to look at who's running as state representatives and who's running as state senators in your community, because those are the people that are going to be deciding or trying to foster whatever money for their community. They decide that. And
Right.
So if those folks, if you have a person that is at the state level in office and you fail to vote for that person, and the person has been doing things that are beneficial to you, and I think, a lot of it, Mick, people don't even realize what is being done. And so when you look at, the scheme of things, you find people say, what have they done for me? They ain't done nothing for me.
And really, in all reality, everything that affects your life
is done
through the political process.
Somebody did it.
The water that we drink, that comes through the system, the infrastructure that is built in order for it to get into our houses, that is affected by dollars that comes from the federal and state level and local level. Every single thing. And you said something else that struck a chord with me: education, understanding that people who are in office play a very key role into what can be taught in schools.
Absolutely.
What we can go back to the Brown versus Board.
Yes.
As a people, even though that was in place before we was born.
Right.
This allowed people to be able to go to any school that they want to integrate schools, because, even though I know there's a lot of people out there that like to say, well, we should have never integrated. We can argue that all day long, but the reality was that was argued because those schools
was properly funded,
and they had better tools and resources to educate children than what the schools that African Americans was going to. They was much more funded than the schools that African Americans was going to.
So, Mick, the Ferguson Act, the pre-Brown versus Board of Education was decided by politicians. Brown versus Board of Education came and, in a sense, improved that. Everything is relative, but it was different. That was decided by politicians. You get down to today and you talk about critical race theory, and you can't say nothing that's going to offend somebody. Offend who? Right. That's all decided by politicians.
Exactly. The Voting Act decided by politicians.
We can't get the Voting Rights Act. Why do we have to renew
every 25 years?
A Voting Rights Act, yes. The first in 1964 Voting Rights Act. Why can't we pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act? Why? Because of politicians
that don't want to pass.
And
it makes me think about this. Young people, people of all ages, if you give it some thought, why was it so important that people kept us from voting? Anytime there's effort to keep you away from a process, you need to be really, really concerned as to why that particular process is so guarded.
Exactly.
Because they understand that it's power. Our vote is power.
Hence our campaign.
Power of the ballot. Exactly.
I don't know anybody that even remotely could validate that their vote doesn't count. On July 22nd, the Secretary of State purged 158,000 voters from across the state off the voter rolls. Over 6,000 of those were in Lucas County. So what is that for?
Now, let me ask you this. Why were they purged?
Well, so some were purged because they became ineligible to vote, such as they went to prison. But the majority of them were removed supposedly for being inactive voters. And so what they do is if you haven't voted, it's not just because you didn't vote, but you didn't respond when they asked you about your voting. And so you haven't voted in several national elections. They send you a postcard to the house that you probably don't live at anymore. And as a result, you don't respond. When you don't respond to that, because that's an activity that will deem you active again if you respond. Most people don't respond because they don't receive it, or it's so inconspicuous that, it's one of them things that slid in between the guy selling a roofing job and a Valvoline postcard, and it gets tossed.
Right.
So
bulk mail.
Yes. And so if you don't respond to those, then you become inactive. And then you get in what's called a confirmation status, which means we still trying to confirm if Albert Earl is still alive or what have you.
Oh, yeah, or in the country.
So, so when you don't respond, I honestly, I don't know how they come up with those dates or time frames, but I'm sure it's beneficial to somebody's pocket. They purge you.
Right.
So 6,000
in Lucas County.
6,150 people met that criteria and were purged. And so they're walking around
not even knowing their status.
may not. But here's another nuance to that. Sometimes they make a mistake and purge an active voter.
Wow.
So when they are in the purging period, and another thing, Mick, that is so funny, young folks have a different definition of purging. And
would that be because of the name of the movie?
Because of the name of the movie. My grandchildren were like, "What?" When I said not this time around, but early on when we started talking about purging, my grandkids was like, "Purging what? Like they killing people?" Like, so, again, education. But those people are essentially walking around, and people who may be active voters who were, quote, mistakenly purged. Everybody, and I mean everybody, need to verify their voter registration.
So 150,000 people who once voted are removed from the system.
Mm-hmm.
It don't even take 150,000 to
win an election.
Right.
Listen,
right.
And then on top of that don't even include the probably 500,000. These are old numbers. I haven't seen the numbers for right now today, but it was over 539,000 across the state that of voters who could vote but are not even registered.
Wow.
At 12,000 here in Lucas County.
12,000 non-registered folks.
Non-registered
of voting
folks.
age.
That was the last data that was shared with the community. 12,000 Lucas County voters, individuals, citizens who are not registered and not even, they can't,
I don't think they heard you. Say that into the mic one more time.
12,000, over 12,000 Lucas County voters not registered and don't vote. They're eligible, so they're 18 years of age or older, eligible to be registered, but are not.
Wow. You know what? Before I lose this, I want to go back to something. You said they can be purged if they go to jail. Now watch this. Now this is or go to prison.
Yes, make sure there's a distinction
between jail and prison.
Yes.
If they go to prison. However, the same people that can't vote while they're in prison can be counted on the population rolls in the county in which they are imprisoned. Did you know that?
So you're talking about the penitentiaries in those states, in those areas. No, that's something. Yeah, that's not information that that you're talking about the U.S. Census now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But why? But why would that be important when you're counted on a census roll to a community?
Well, here I would imagine people. The purpose. You listen. I don't care what you doing. You gonna go back. You gonna trickle back to money.
There you go.
And so the more individuals, the more individuals you have in a census count, the more money funding you get, the more representatives are determined, how many representatives that you get. Absolutely. And so I don't know from our perspective, from a voting perspective, if it's going to bring, but here's the nuance to that. They're counted, but anything involving the resources or the decisions made about anything, they don't have a say in that.
They don't have a say in it.
They
exactly.
Don't have a say in it.
But the dollars still go. So it's kind of like when they say taxation without representation, it says it's the main thing is that we need to understand how all this work politically. And when you understand this, you understand that it's important to make sure that you get out and let your voice be heard. I don't even think a lot of young people understand that a lot of the judges that are in the seats that they are in is because
Somebody elected
them.
Big. When you turn on your light switch in your house, that the politicians are involved in all the regulations for utilities.
Yes.
That is how high your utility bill is and how utility companies are allowed to charge you.
How high that water bill.
That water. Man, don't talk about that water bill. They get to decide how you're going to. So, I mean, every aspect of your life.
And so, how do we, with that, how do we begin to shift the narrative for our people?
So that's where the work is. And that's where the rubber meets the road, because this is the work that most people really, you can't be weak in this work of engagement, because that's where the work begins. You can send out all the postcards you want and send out all the flyers you want and do whatever you want on social media until you knock on that door and engage that person and meet them where they are.
Meet them where they are.
We're not going to move the needle. That's what we are. That's that work that, and I'm not criticizing any group of people, but we all talk about how we need to educate voters. We need to do this. We need to do that. We can't do it from our little Taj Mahals. We got to come up out of these offices, out of these buildings. I mean, if we say that we want to engage voters,
yes,
we got all kinds of different organizations,
right, that
say they've been mandated by their national, I don't care if it's the NAACP or whoever, nonpartisan, have been given marching orders for forever to do this kind of work.
That's right.
It's hard to materialize though. And so that's one of the benefits of having an Ohio Unity Coalition in your community, because we now have the infrastructure to help organizations, and we are constantly looking for partnerships with organizations. We're not telling organizations not to do whatever it is they do, but the things that we're good at, we can help them meet those, meet their mission of, every organization. I don't care. You look at it, church, Divine Nine, whoever, they all have either social action coordinators or social outreach coordinators. We are open to working with people and in a partnership now, not we going out and do the work, because Ohio Unity Coalition is only as strong as its partners. It's a coalition. Absolutely. So if you go down there to my office, you ain't gonna see 50, 60 people sitting in there waiting to, no. We rely on our partners for canvassers. We pay canvassers pretty well. We pay better than most manufacturing companies right now.
So you're looking for canvassers now?
We are looking for canvassers. Canvassers get paid $20 an hour, and they have to commit to a 4-hour shift, and they can create their own schedule for the week. Our operations are Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and the weekend, either Saturday or a Sunday. Today we're going out today.
So I want to ask you this: what information will they be disseminating?
So
When they're canvassing.
when they're canvassing, they have a script. They have all of we have a targeted precinct where they are only going to. We use what's called the Voter Action Network, and we can hone in on. We can do that for organizations that partner with us. We can hone in on the precinct and find out who's registered, who's not registered. And in this case, in this phase of our campaign, we're doing voter verification. And so those canvassers are given a tablet that they log into the action, log in with their action ID, and we assign them a turf. So, for example, this community center sits in Ward 14. And within Ward 14, I have like 9 turfs, including this community center is sitting in one of those turfs. Mm-hmm. And we could identify who around the Frederick Douglass Center is not registered. Okay. And you can actually go and knock on that person's door. Now, you have to have some skills in communication because you can't knock on nobody's door and say, look, I heard you ain't registered. Look, you need to get your act together. No. Right. So what we do, though, is part of our canvassing, we're actually surveying people to find out what they're concerned about. And so we lead with a script that essentially asks that, what are you concerned about? Is the economy? Is it the high cost of living? Is it education? Is it healthcare? And then we tabulate those concerns. Mm-hmm. And then we get to, did you know 6,000 people were purged? Do you want to check your registration? We know the person ain't registered.
You already know that.
We already know that. Right. But do you want to check it? And most people, if they are interested in wanting to register, will say, yeah, as a matter of fact, I would.
So have you ever had an incident where you checked someone and they thought they was registered and they found out they had been purged?
Many times.
Wow.
Many times.
And what was their reaction to that?
Let me put that in again. And then you ask people, when was the last time you voted? You may have been purged. You ain't gonna call nobody a lie. Right. But for the most part, people that are not in there, they know they're not registered, and right. And most of the time they know it.
Wow.
But there's a way I don't care what it is that you're doing. There's a way to talk to people and most people that we encounter that are not registered will register. Okay. You find a few that have a philosophical opinion, and we don't argue with folks. Thank you. Mm. Have a nice day.
Right.
And so those canvassers have to be skilled in not only, knocking on a door but have to be skilled at having a conversation with somebody.
Yeah.
They're talking to people and they're equipped. They have a vest on, they have an ID badge on, and they have a tablet and a clipboard. And so they're really equipped and most people are receptive to this.
That's great. So we got some work to do.
Plenty.
October 7th is
last day to register to
vote.
Yes.
This is a very important election.
Yes.
No matter what individual you plan on voting for, but this is a very important election, and we got some very important elections that's coming up.
Absolutely.
After that, and we need to be more civically engaged.
And let me just say, November 5th is one of the election days.
Right.
Early vote starts October 8th, the day after the end of voter registration. Early vote starts October 8th and runs all the way up to, I believe, the Sunday before Election Day.
All right. That's right. Well, tell the people that again.
The last day to register to vote is October 7th. So you still have a little bit of time. Early vote starts October 8th. You can actually go and vote early. Now, do understand, Mick, we do need to talk about IDs, because it used to be that you could go to the Board of Elections with your utility bill if you do not have an ID. That's not going to be acceptable. You have to have a driver's license or a state ID in order to vote.
Okay.
And there are some programs. I don't have the information, but there are some programs here in Lucas County where somebody is paying for, some organization is paying for people to get their IDs. So that's something people can find out about.
Absolutely. So remember that you gotta have either a valid driver license or a state ID in order to vote. They're no longer accepting the utility bills, making it a little bit more difficult. But
that's all around limiting your right to vote.
That's right. It's
all around that.
Right. But we have to get engaged more. I think what the Ohio Unity Coalition is doing is much needed. I would like to throw this out there, and I know you guys are doing something. I think with that civic education, we have to engage our 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds who are going to be voting for the first time, and those who are about to vote. I think it should be mandatory in the schools, but I don't think that's going to happen. But there's nothing stopping the community organization, the churches, and all the other organizations outside of the school, including the family, the parents, in having some type of process where they're educating their children civically so that they can know what's going on.
And Mick, you mentioned churches. We're rolling out something for churches to, because we know how church is. I just got out of church. Church is by numbers. You know, you got your praise and worship, you got whatever you got going on. We're asking churches to create a segment of their service just for voter verification. And so we're going to be rolling out that plan. All we're asking is for pastors to recruit some volunteers who will be on their voter engagement team for their church. And those volunteers will be responsible for assisting the congregants in just their church on verifying their voter registration, as well as getting them registered to vote. And we're also going to ask them to staff a table for before and after service for people to randomly come up and register. Sometimes people don't want to be put on the spot. Sometimes people just have general questions. And so we're going to be asking them to do that. In addition, there's some additional activities that churches should be doing anyway, and that is going out into the community around their house of worship, and we will create a walk list for them for as many number of doors that they want, and go out and engage voters with the same message that our canvassers are engaging voters. They can also do postcards if they, some churches have an older congregation and they can't do canvassing.
Right.
So they can get involved in our postcard campaign where instead of knocking at the voter's door, it's something that the people in the community can get from your church that's saying, that's encouraging them to verify their voter registration.
I personally think that is a great idea. I hope that many churches will get involved in that process. And we know historically, a lot of the things that happened for us came through the church.
That's right.
And the church, and I hope that the church today reinvent that wheel and get our community more involved.
And have that civic, because the civic education that you're talking about, it might have to be done in houses of worship.
Absolutely.
Around families. And so this is not something that the Ohio Unity Coalition is suggesting for this campaign. we're suggesting that this is year round. You should be having civic engagement in your house of worships year
Community
round.
centers, yeah,
Community centers year round.
Absolutely. I agree.
Verifying voters. People should be able to walk into their church, and there should be someone that could help them register to vote. Or if you have youth in your church, you wouldn't have to worry about the school making sure they're registered to vote. The church can do that. So,
and being that the church is under the 501c3 status, that's another reason why you should understand why you should be engaged, because the federal government issues that. So we have to be more involved, get more educated, and get out and vote and understand why you're voting and who you're voting for. But with that, hey, this has been a great show, great information.
Power of the ballot. That's where your power at. That's where your voice is.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I want to thank Anita Madison for joining us today. It's been great talking to you, and I'm going to have you back on the show because I know there's so much more that we can talk about in terms of this issue. And we will, because we need to talk more about it as we move closer and closer, not only to the election, but not just November, but October with the early vote, October with the cutoff dates. There's so many things that's happening around this. So we got to have more shows to educate our people and make sure that these messages get out. Hey, thanks everybody for joining the show today. This has been a great show, Counterintelligence. Again, we here to give information to counter all of the mis and disinformation that you are hearing on a daily basis. And please make sure that you like this video, but most of all, share it and subscribe to it. This show, our episodes of Spread the Love, this Spread the Love campaign is sponsored by UMADOP Lucas County, who is sponsored by OMAS and the Mental Health and Recovery Service Board of Lucas County. So, hey, that's so much to say, and I stumble over all those words sometimes. But Mental Health Recovery Services of Lucas County helps fund UMADOP. So please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the show. And as always, what up, fam? Make sure you spread the love.
I know somebody who declares he's got it made. He won't admit it, but it's just a masquerade. He's a modern-day deceiver with a case of falsehood fever. What a day! It's sucky. And then there's devotion, Sarah, ain't she sweet? Oh, yes, she is. She gets the word, next thing you know, it's in the street. By the time it's been repeated, all the truth has been deleted. What a shame. Love is her game. Seems like everything we hear is just a tale, but I